Hi, I'm David Blatner. I'm the president of Creative Pro Network and the founder and publisher of InDesign magazine. Now, I've been using InDesign for over 20 years, and my goal today is to show you some awesome tips and tricks involving parts of the program that you might not be that familiar with. Now, I should say that some presenters here at Max focus on just a few core lessons, and they carefully, methodically make sure that you understand them well. But I take a different approach. I use what I call the fire hose method of teaching. In other words, we don't have a lot of time today, so I'm going to cram in as much as I can into the next 25 minutes, like a fire hose of information. And that means that some of these tips might fly by a little quickly. But don't worry, it's all being recorded, so you can go back and review it again and again. Now, I'm going to break this little session into 3 different sections. First, I'm going to show you 5 brilliant features that most InDesign users should know about, but they rarely use. Next, I want to introduce you to using scripts in InDesign, and I want to show you a few that you really want to use. It's super easy. And finally, it's time for you to learn a little bit about grep. You might have heard about grep in InDesign, but not known where to start. That's okay. I'm going to give you a quick overview, and I'll get you on your way. Okay, that's a lot. So hold on, here we go. Okay, the 5 features that we're going to talk about are object layer options, pre-flight panel, publish online, and the page tool. Oh, and also share for review. That's the 5th one. So the first one, object layer options, has to do with images. Now, if you have placed an image in your document that's a PSD file or an AI file, a Photoshop or an Illustrator document that has layers, you can turn on and off those layers inside InDesign. For example, this is a Photoshop file. Let me zoom in to 200% with a Command 2 or Control 2 on Windows. And by the way, this green line and this little icon in the lower right corner, that just indicates that it's an animated feature. I use the animation tools in InDesign. We'll see that later on. But anyway, this is just a Photoshop file that I've imported, and I go to the Object menu and choose Object Layer Options. I love this feature. Inside the Object Layer Options dialog box, I can see all the different layers inside the Photoshop file. And because the preview checkbox is turned on, if I change this, I can immediately see the update there. There's the layer of 2015. There's the 2018 Max icon. Let's go back to 2015. I really like that one, and click OK. And that's it. If it's a Photoshop file, an Illustrator file, a PDF file that has layers, even an InDesign file, a lot of people don't realize that you can place one InDesign file into another InDesign file. That works as well. You can turn on and off each individual layer with that dialog box. So helpful. And I do need to point out that it will not change the file on disk. It's not changing that at all. It just changes what's visible inside this InDesign document. Super, super helpful feature. Okay, the second tool of 5 that I want to talk about is the pre-flight panel. Totally different feature. You probably noticed in the lower left corner of your document window, there's this little red dot. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's red. Here it's red and it says 1 error. And now that is the pre-flight feature built into InDesign. You have to be using this feature. You just gotta. Here's how it works. You could go to the window menu and choose output pre-flight, but the fastest way to get there is just to click on that little place where it says 1 error, not the dot, but the error, and up comes the pre-flight checkbox, pre-flight panel with the checkbox on, and we can see that we have a problem, a potential problem here. There's some overset text, and if I open it up, I can see there's a text frame on page 1. There's the page. That is super helpful, but here's the problem. Most people just leave the pre-flight panel set to the basic profile here. So you don't want to do that. You want to make your own pre-flight profile, and it's really easy. Let me show you how. Go to the pre-flight panel menu in the upper right corner and click Define Profiles. Then click the little plus sign so you can name your own. I'm going to call this the Max 2021 profile. You can call it anything you want. And you can see that there's all kinds of options in here that you can change. For example, inside the color area, you can say if registration color is applied, then tell me about it. If there's any white or paper color that's overprinting, you want to know about that. Tell me about it, and so on. Here inside images and objects, I can say Image resolution. If there's any images that are under 150 pixels per inch, yeah, I better know about that. Tell me about those things. Also, let me try another one. Oh, minimum stroke weight. If there's any strokes that are too thin, like less than a quarter point, I want to know about that. These are all things that you need to know about because they may be problems in your document. You can spend some time going through those and finding ones that you like. But for right now, I'm just going to leave it set to that and click OK. Now, here's what you need to do. It will not kick in automatically. You have to go to the Profile pop-up menu and choose that profile that you just made. There we go. Now, within less than a second, it says, oh, you've got a color problem. Registration not... Oh, I did use registration somewhere in this document. And if I click on the page number, it takes me right to it. And in fact, in this case, it is that same graphic that we were just looking at. Has registration in the stroke. Oh, look at that. I don't want registration color. That's bad. Use black instead. Oh, and the stroke is too small. I'm going to set it to, let's say, half a point. And boom, as soon as I do that, the errors go away inside the pre-flight panel. Isn't that amazing? Let's go over here. The image resolution. Oh, that same image. That's too low res. Let's make that smaller. When you make a bitmapped image smaller, the resolution goes up, so that error goes away. And then finally, our text frame down here, I can see the error, the overset error here. So let's make this a little bit bigger, and that goes away. And as soon as I do that, not only is this clear, but the little dot turns green here and in the lower left corner. Green tells me this document is good to go. That is so helpful. I love the pre-flight panel. Okay, let's look at a couple more features here that you absolutely need to know about. First, publish online. Publish online you can get to by going to the File menu and checking Publish Online, or you can go to the Share menu up here and say Share. Click on the little left button to go back to the main menu and say Publish Online. And all this does is it takes your InDesign document and it puts it on the web so that other people can see it. It's so easy. That's all. You just click Go and it does it. And then it gives you the URL, or you can click View Document. And in this case, it'll open up in my default browser. There's my little animated graphic at the top. Isn't that amazing? Now, I have some features down here at the bottom that it adds automatically. Like I can zoom in here, and then I can just scroll around if I want. And you'll see it's not bitmap text. It's actually outline text in a web browser that anybody can see. Super helpful feature. You could just give your boss this, or a client, or anybody. You can just post that. Now, the Publish Online does have to be on Adobe's servers, but that's really the only major limitation. Let's go back to InDesign here and click Close. Oh, another feature. Feature number 4 that you should know about, the Page Tool. Page Tool, let me go over to page 2 over here, and I can see I made a little banner ad. Now, the banner ad is great, but if I export this as a PNG or a JPEG or whatever, I'll get the entire page, right? So I want the page to be the same size as this little graphic. So to do that, I'm going to use the Page tool over here. It's the third tool down in the tool panel. And this lets you choose your page size to anything you want. You can just change it to anything you want. You can even type in your own values over here if you want. Or you could do that in the Properties panel if you want over here as well. I usually use the Control panel, but either one works. Now, here's the funny thing. When you have a page selected and you make a change, it may change. It typically changes your master page as well. So let me undo that change. I need to change one thing here. Up in the Control panel, I'm going to change this liquid page rule to off. That feature links your document page to your master page, and you don't want that. So make sure the liquid page rule is turned off, and then you can change your page size up here, or you can just drag these handles. Now, ordinarily, if you drag, as soon as you let go, it reverts back. It snaps back to the size it was. So that's kind of annoying. It's doing that to save you from accidentally changing anything. But so here's the trick. Hold down the Option or the Alt key when you drag those corner or side handles, and now it sticks. That's all you need to do. Option or Alt drag up until you get to where you want to go, and then let go, and now it's the size I want it. I can export it out as a PNG or a JPEG or whatever. So, Page Tool, super helpful. You got to use it. Try it out. I love that feature. Now, The last feature I want to show you that most people don't know about, but you really need to try, is called Share for Review. And Share for Review is kind of like that Publish Online feature, but with a twist. It gives you something, it's kind of like a bonus. Let's actually go look at that. You can get there from the File menu. You can say Share for Review, or again, from the Share pop-up menu up here, I'll click Share for Review, and then just create. Click Create. Now, InDesign is doing the same kind of thing. It's taking this whole document, and it's uploading it to a website on the Adobe servers, and then it gives you a URL down here. You can even add people to this. You can invite people to edit it. Not edit it, but to comment on it. That's the key here. In this case, I'm just going to click on the URL here, and it takes me to that page inside my web browser, and you'll see it looks very much like Publish Online, but here's the bonus. I can comment on it. I could give this to my boss or a client, and they could open it. They don't have to have InDesign. They can just open it in their web browser, and then they can do things like, I think I'll place a pin on this and say, is this the right image? Submit. Boom. Done. Highlight some text. I'll highlight some text here and say, should this be columns? You know, stuff like that. You can strike out text and edit it, or draw shapes on your page, stuff like that. Comment on it if you want, or I'll just cancel that one. Now, here's the amazing part. When you do this, in real time, you can get feedback in InDesign. Let me switch back to InDesign here, and I'll close this little share menu, go to the window menu, go down to comments, and choose review. And InDesign goes out to the web and collects all those comments and brings them into the browser here. So now I can see, let's scroll over here. Here's this says, should this be columns? And I can reply and say, nope, and click submit. And then whoever wrote that comment, my boss or my client, would see that reply. Isn't that awesome? Is this the right image? And I could say yes, or I could just say resolve this or delete this and so on. So super, super easy feature for working with comments over the web with your clients or anybody on your team. Amazing feature. So there are 5 features that you need to know about. Object layer options, pre-flight panel, publish online, page tool, and share for review. Try them out. You got to try those, people. I love these features. Okay, part 2, scripts. Scripts are so helpful and so easy to use. Let me show you how. First, let's go ahead and close my review panel here and that page panel. To find your scripts, you want to go to the window menu, go down to utilities, and then choose scripts. And you're going to see a bunch of scripts in here. Now, I have a lot of my own scripts. Let me hide those for right now. Typically, you're just going to look inside the application folder here. So you open the application folder with this little twirly triangle, open samples, open JavaScript. It works on both Mac and Windows, and you can see all these scripts that actually come with InDesign. For example, one of my favorites is Make Grid. Make Grid is so amazing. Let me jump to my next page here and select this image and zoom into 200%. Now I've got a graphic and a text frame here. With the graphic selected, I'm going to double click on Make Grid. That's how you run a script. You just double click on it. And I can say, make this like a 3x3 grid with maybe 6-point gutters, and click OK, and that's it. It's done. You can see it turned that graphic into a grid, and each of these is a separate object. Isn't that amazing? Very, very simple. It's the kind of feature that is so helpful if you're doing real estate ads or car ads or anything where you need a grid quickly. Make Grid does it for you. So cool. Let's look at another one here in this list. Let me go back to page 1 here. And I can see in this story, there's some weird stuff going on here. Let me go to the type menu and choose Show Hidden Characters. Oh my gosh, so many problems here. Tabs at the beginning of paragraphs, spaces at the beginning of paragraphs. There's double hyphens, and there's 2 spaces after punctuation. All kinds of mess that we see this all the time, right? This is the way a lot of people type, and then we import it in InDesign, and we have to clean it up. Wouldn't it be cool if there were some way that you could clean it up really, really quickly? Well, there is. There's a script, and the script comes with InDesign, and it's called Find Change by List. A little bit hard to see there, but all you need to do is double-click on Find Change by List, click OK, and it's done. I mean, it's amazing. All those tabs are gone. The double spaces are gone. The dashes got changed to M dashes. Oh my gosh, it was that easy. Isn't that cool? Now, there's all kinds of ways that you can customize Find Change by List, but I just want you to know that by default, it does all this cleanup. If you needed to do different things, you can edit the script. You can edit a text file that comes with a script, and there's some explanation in there on how to do that. Okay, let me show you another script that you have to know about that comes with InDesign, and that's sorting paragraphs. Let me zoom in on this, Command or Control 4. These paragraphs are out of alphabetical order. Wouldn't it be nice if we could put them in alphabetical order? Super easy to do with a script. It comes with InDesign. It's called Sort Paragraphs. I need to make this wider so I can actually see it. All you need to do is double click on Sort Paragraphs, click OK, and boom, it's done. It's in alphabetical order. So easy, so fast. So these are all scripts that come with InDesign, but there are dozens or hundreds of scripts out there that you can get for yourself, that you can download off the web. For example, I put them all in my user folder here. And you can find, oh my gosh, this is an amazing one. Right now, this time of the year, a lot of people are looking at making their own calendars. And it's kind of a hassle to make a calendar in InDesign, but it's not a hassle at all if you have the Calendar Wizard script. Calendar Wizard is free for personal use or hobby, nonprofit use. But if you're doing this commercially, if you're using Calendar Wizard commercially, you have to pay for it. But I'm going to put a link in the final creativepro.com/max that will let you find this script. And all you have to do is double click on it. Now, I don't want this to freak you out because it's kind of a little overwhelming at first, what's going on. But it's really easy to use. Actually, I do need to do one thing. Let me cancel that. I want to make sure nothing is selected on my page before I do this, or it's just going to put the calendar inside that frame, and that's not good. So Command-Shift-A to deselect everything, then, or Control-Shift-A on Windows, then I'll double-click on this, and all you need to do is choose what months you want. Like I can say October 2021, click OK, and InDesign the script goes out and builds my calendar in a new document. It's as easy as that. Isn't that incredible? Even better, all of these, it makes all the styles for you. So like if you don't want this font, you can just right click on Cal Base and say, let's go ahead and make this something else, like maybe Papyrus. Everyone loves Papyrus, right? You can make it into Papyrus. All right, maybe you don't want Papyrus, but you get the idea. Now, when you do that, note that it does affect the spacing in here. Things got a little bit wonky and some of the text got overset. So all you have to do is select the text, select the frames there, go back to your script and run the script again. But this time, I'm going to move this over. I'm going to go to Utilities and I'll say Fit Calendar to Frame, and it automatically resets everything. So that's kind of handy. Important little feature that you need to know about. Calendar Wizard, incredible script. Go download it from the creativepro.com/max site. It's amazing. So scripts in general are amazing. I really feel like if you're not using scripts in InDesign, you are not being efficient. Okay, part 3, grep. It is time for you to learn a little bit about grep. You may have heard about it. Maybe you don't know what it is. Let me switch back to my other document here and zoom back to look at this text one more time. Grep is a way to search for text based on a pattern. For example, find me all words that begin with the letter A. That's a pattern. Or find me all the words that are inside parentheses. That's a pattern. Anytime you're looking for a pattern in text, and maybe you don't know exactly what the text is, but you know the pattern, you can use grep. And it turns out there's all kinds of cool things you can do with it. Now, grep shows up in 2 different places in InDesign. Let me go ahead and switch, close my scripts panel here. The first place is the Find Change dialog box. I'll click the grep tab here, and now you can type some code in. You have to type code to define the pattern, and you can find all the codes inside this little @ pop-up menu here. So, for example, I'm going to find a wildcard, which is any word character, and I'll learn that's \W. So I'm going to type that 3 more times, and this just means find 4 letters in a row, and I need to find, I'm going to look for a 4-letter word. So I'm going to say add a location, which is a word boundary here, which is \B, and I'm going to put \B at the beginning. So this means find a 4-letter word that has boundaries on either side. So it's a little bit weird, a little obscure. It takes a little bit of time to wrap your head around. But once you get some of these codes, it's so helpful. Like I can click Find Next, and it finds the first 4-letter word in here, and say Find Next again, and it finds another one. Even though it's a different word. It's any 4-letter word that is a full word, has boundaries on either side. Really, really helpful. So Find Change is one place you could find grep. Another place you find grep is inside paragraph styles using grep styles. So for example, I'm going to click down here. I can see that I've got the word max here and so on. I want to find every place I've typed the word max. I could use Find Change for that, but in this case, I'm going to double click on my body paragraph style, and I'll click on the grep style pane here. I'll say new grep style, create a new grep style, and I'm going to apply a character style. Now, I've already made a character style in my document, so I'm going to apply that character style that I already made to some text. And this is like the simplest grep, no special characters or anything. Just look for the word max and apply a style to it. But I don't know where it is. And as you can see, as soon as I do that, as soon as I click out here to deselect that, all of a sudden, let's move this out of the way, and you can see every place in this paragraph style where I've typed the word max, it works. Let's go ahead and close this, and let me try it out. I'm going to click over here, and I'll say max. And I don't know if you can see that, but it did not work. Let me zoom into 400%. It did not work. Why? Because grep is case dependent. Very case sensitive. So as soon as I do MAX, all caps, it works. So it's as easy as that. Really, really helpful. Now let's do another one. Let's zoom out a little bit. Let's look for all of these other ones. Let's go ahead and double click on this and say, I want a grep style, new grep style, which is going to apply a 3-letter acronym style to anything that has 3 letters in a row. And in this case, 3 uppercase characters. So I go to my @ pop-up menu and I say, give me a wildcard, any uppercase letter, which is \U. So I'm going to say \U a few more times. And now anytime I see 3 uppercase letters in a row, it's going to apply my 3-letter acronym style to it. Let's move this out of the way. And you can see GED, IBM, TLA, ABC, and so on. They're all applied. Now, it wiped out some of my max style, and that's because I have 2 different grep styles in a row here. So I'm going to select this first one, click the down arrow, and now that happens second. So it's going to do the 3-letter acronyms first, and then the max styles, so I get both styles applied to my text. Can you see that? So I don't know where in this text those 3-letter characters were going to be, but as soon as I type 3 uppercase characters in a row, like ABC, it changes. It's as simple as that. Grep styles are an absolutely incredible feature in InDesign. I'm going to say this is my favorite feature in InDesign. So incredibly powerful. Okay, holy Toledo, that was a lot of material in a short time. But like I said, you can always go back and watch the session later. And if you want to learn more about InDesign, come find me at creativepro.com/max. I have put a bunch of links there, like how to install scripts, how to find Calendar Wizard, how to learn more about grep. Plus, you're going to find InDesign Magazine and free and premium InDesign templates and all kinds of stuff about InDesign and Photoshop and Illustrator and more. Now, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't also mention 2 other events coming up. First, the Design plus Accessibility Summit, which has a ton of information for InDesign users who need to make accessible documents. And also Creative Pro Week, which is our 5-day extravaganza of InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop, Acrobat, PowerPoint, all the tools. We're going to be live in Washington, D.C. this coming May, and also live streaming. So check that out at creativeproweek.com. So that's it for today. It has been a pleasure speaking again at Max this year. Thank you for coming to my session, and happy InDesigning.